RVing or any kind of travel is easier with a dog than a cat. When I first started looking into RVing, I was really concerned about whether or not it was going to be difficult or easy for me to take my cat with me. I looked for a lot of information online, and there just weren't a lot of people discussing the same concerns I had. Most of the people traveling with their cats had these leash trained harness wearing adventure kitties that were climbing mountains. That's not my cat, and chances are that's not your cat either. I have a house cat who's indoor only, and he's semi-feral, so he's super skittish around everyone else but me. So I definitely had my work cut out for me when I decided to take my cat RVing. As a matter of fact, this is what it was like getting Shadow into the car to the vet for the first time since he had been adopted.
Shadow. Shadow. Calm down, buddy.
Hey, bud. Come here. Hey. Well, there you go. You're actually supposed to have proof that your pet has their shots and has a clean bill of health from the vet. So the very first concern for me was to take Shadow to the vet, which, as you can see, didn't work out well. Going to the vet is really important though. It was also a good opportunity for me to ask the vet for advice. I mean, he was right there watching Shadow holler. He recommended a smaller carrier than the one I had, which I did get, fell away spray, a calming collar, and he prescribed and gave to me on the spot sedatives for Shadow, basically tranquilizers. And all of those things working together are probably the only reason me, my mom, and my dad survived the first day in the RV. It was about 16 to 18 hours total of travel time, and Shadow handled it like a champ. I was so proud of him. Like I said, one of the things the vet recommended was to get a smaller carrier. The reason I didn't do that at first was Shadow actually does not like confined spaces. And in my mind, I was like, well, if he has a whole kitty studio there to himself, his own little mega mansion, then he'll be comfortable. It had a litter box. It had space for him to hang out. It had water. It had food. Well, it turns out Shadow doesn't really drink a lot of water or eat a lot when he's traveling, and to my surprise, he never ever used a litter box. As a matter of fact, I'll share a picture of him chilling in the litter box. It was 100% unused, no poo, no pee, no nothing. And so that made me more confident to go ahead and downsize to a smaller carrier. Test your cat to see if how long they can go without needing to use a litter box. I think if your cat is older, it might be harder for them. Shadow is a young cat. RVing does not necessarily mean buying a commercial RV. You could, for instance, do SUV RVing or car camping or even overlanding, or maybe you could get a motorhome instead of a travel trailer. You have to think about your cat and figure out what they would be comfortable with. I really wanted to do the rooftop tent setup or a sleeper camper because it was more compact and it was just a much easier setup than what I have now. However, because my cat is indoor only, I didn't want him to be in a box that was that small. He really loves to run and pick up speed, and so it was necessary for me to have enough space for him to do so, and he definitely picks up speed and bounces off the walls in here in the RV. I think I made the right choices that I have. We're having 30 mile per hour winds. It is super, super windy.
Shadow doesn't usually mind the storms, even when it's hailing and the winds are high, so that was a one-off situation. But if your cat does, you'll definitely need to create a plan for that.
The litter box stink. So, these are some of the things that I did to cure that before it ever even hit the road, and all of those help right now. The first is that I changed out the open litter box I was using to a closed litter box. It does make a difference with the scent because it helps to kind of keep that in the box instead of spreading it all around your space, whether that's an RV or in a house. The next thing I did was I changed the litter. During the pandemic, the cheap litter that I was using for Shadow just disappeared off the shelf with all the toilet paper. So I started using Arm & Hammer, which cost like 2 times what I was paying for everything else. Once I used that, there was no going back. It's a lot easier to clean up. It smells nice. Arm & Hammer also makes a spray for the litter box that helps to keep down the smell of ammonia. The next thing that I did was I started tweaking Shadow's diet. Shadow has really bad diarrhea from eating wet food, but he loves it and I love giving it to him because he wants it. So I started giving him this thing called Best Paw Pure Digestion. And that's what this is. And hopefully you can read that. But it did wonders. It cut down the likelihood of him having diarrhea. And for comparison, I used to only be able to give him the really tiny cans of cat food every other day. Now I give him half of the much bigger cans or one of those small cans every day. So that's a huge improvement. The other recommendation I would make is stay in dry areas. I know I'm going to have an issue when I get up to Wyoming because it's going to be more humid, but in the desert, the dry air dries out the ammonia out of the litter box, and that increases the likelihood of you smelling absolutely nothing. Setting boundaries with a cat is not easy. Cats don't respect boundaries. But if you know your cat, there are ways to get it done. Like I said, Shadow is super skittish. He doesn't like to be scared. He doesn't like sudden movements. He doesn't like strange sounds. So I got this motion sensor thing, and this is what keeps him off my kitchen counters. Another way to set boundaries is to give him his space so that he doesn't have to mess with my things. So for instance, I've given him the whole dinette table. Usually that's where somebody would eat. I have my own table where I eat separate from the dinette, which is just a foldable table that you would use at a couch. I can also work there if I don't feel like working at the dinette or he's sprawled out. There's no space for me at my dinette. So that's another way to set boundaries. You'll have to figure out how much of a germaphobe you are, like me not wanting my cat on my kitchen counters, and just how easy it will be to help your cat understand the areas in such a small space that he or she is not allowed to venture onto. So, even though Shadow has no interest in going outside, he has been outside before. It has not happened since we've been in the RV, but it definitely happened in Atlanta. He likes to kill things. He's a serial killer. He really is. I have a little monster in here. So, like in Georgia, if he saw a salamander outside, he would knock down the barrier that I put and just make a run for it and try to grab the salamander and bring it back inside. But there were a couple of instances where he took off so far that I couldn't immediately find him. And so it was very important to me for me to have a way to track him. I have a towel tracker. It's not actually made to track a cat, but I use it for that. I think it's actually made to track your keys and your wallet and other loose odds and ends and bits that you might misplace. But I use it to track my cat. I'll leave the details to that in a link down below so you can check it out if you want more information on why I chose it, which one I use, and how it works. I'm not going to bore you guys with the technical details of that right now. But yeah, you can always check that. I'll leave the link down below. I do have an article on that on my blog. Shadow does not like travel days. He is really excited as soon as he gets to a spot so he can see what's going on. But he really hates actually being in the truck and getting from point A to point B. So with that in mind, I made sure that I chose a travel frequency that worked for him. So I only travel every 30 days. That's how often I move my RV. That is going to end in the next month or so, because after that I have a very long trip from May 4th, I think, to June 4th. That's gonna take me from California to Wyoming. If you don't want to miss it, I would say maybe you should just go ahead and subscribe now. Just saying. And that's gonna be really interesting because some of those stays are just overnight. Some of them are 3 days. I think the longest we'll be anywhere is about a week. So I don't know how he'll handle it. But I feel like we've been on the road long enough for him to work up a certain amount of tolerance for moving. So you'll have to figure out what works for your cat. You don't want to put your cat or dog in a situation where you're moving more often than they can handle. If moving stresses them out and every day or every other day or every 3 days you're moving to another location, chances are the only person who's going to enjoy traveling is you. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that you got some tips that you can use to make life so much easier for not just yourself but your cat, and to give you peace of mind about whether or not your cat will be a good traveler. If my cat, who embarrassed me at the vet and hollered the way he did, can be the travel kitty that he is now, I don't see why yours cannot adjust. Also, you've just got to be patient. You got to have a plan. You have to be adjustable to make them adjust, and you just got to roll with it and go from there. You know, if you have any questions at all, just leave a comment down below. Go over to my blog or shoot me an email or go on social media, whatever works for you. I am here to answer your questions. So I guess that's it for now, and we'll see you guys next week Friday. Bye.